What if the greatest health threat after age 60 wasn't something you could feel, touch, or even see coming? What if it wasn't a dramatic heart attack or a sudden fall, but something that hides in silence, waiting for the smallest opening? Every single year in the United States, nearly 800,000 people suffer a stroke. And here's the part most people don't realize. Almost 3 out of 4 of those strokes happen in adults over 65. Now pause with me for a moment. We often picture stroke as something loud and unmistakable. A person clutching their head, collapsing to the floor, slurring their words. But the truth is, many strokes don't begin with that drama. They begin quietly, almost politely, with little whispers in the body that most of us mistake for just getting older. A little extra fatigue, some brain fog, a touch of dizziness, a flutter in the chest that seems to come and go. And we tell ourselves, it's nothing, I'm fine. But what if it isn't nothing? What if those are the storm clouds long before the lightning strikes? I'm not here to frighten you. I'm here to prepare you. Because here is a fact too few doctors say loudly enough. The majority of strokes are preventable. Not through expensive medications, not through extreme diets, but through small daily choices that add up over time. Choices that protect your brain, your independence, and the memories you want to carry forward. In this journey together, we'll uncover 7 silent conditions that quietly raise your risk. Conditions millions of older Americans live with, without ever realizing how dangerous they can be. My name is Dr. Samuel Hartman. For over 30 years I've worked with older adults, teaching stroke prevention and the science of aging in classrooms, in living rooms, and in quiet rehab centers across America. And today, I want you to take this time for yourself, maybe with a cup of tea, maybe with a notebook. Because the knowledge we'll share may not only change your life, it may save it. So let's begin. The first silent threat is one I've seen more times than I can count, and it carries a name that sounds harmless, but isn't. High blood pressure. Let me tell you about Evelyn. She was 68, full of life, tending to her garden, baking banana bread for her neighbors, even leading a small Bible study on Tuesdays. She never smoked, rarely drank, and always said, "I feel just fine." But one morning her daughter found her slumped at the kitchen table. The coffee was still warm, but Evelyn's right arm was limp, and her words had vanished. She had suffered a massive stroke. The scans revealed years of damage caused by one thing: high blood pressure she never knew she had. Why do they call it the silent killer? Because it rarely knocks, it rarely shouts, it whispers. And if we don't listen, it can steal everything. Nearly 2 out of 3 Americans over 60 have high blood pressure. Yet most don't keep it under control, not because they don't care, but because they don't feel anything. Do you see the danger? Feeling fine doesn't mean you are fine. Inside your body, here's what happens. Imagine your arteries as delicate garden hoses carrying blood to the brain. When pressure is too high, day after day, the lining begins to wear down. Small cracks form, the vessels stiffen, inflammation builds. Eventually, a clot blocks the flow, or a vessel bursts. That's a stroke. And here's the alarming part. Even borderline readings like 135/85 can double your risk compared to someone with healthy numbers like 120/80. So what can you do? First, know your numbers. Don't rely only on the doctor's office. Check at home with a digital cuff. Write it down in a notebook. Your brain protection log. Second, let food be your partner. Oats, leafy greens, beets, nuts, and hibiscus tea can help lower pressure gently. Third, let habits work for you. Drink water regularly, walk after meals, breathe deeply before bed. Because instead of waiting for a hospital bed, you can choose small steps today. Instead of hoping, "I feel fine," you can know, you can act, you can protect your brain. Coming up next, we'll look at a heart rhythm disorder that often feels like nothing at all, just a tiny flutter. Yet it can send a clot straight to the brain. Let's talk about atrial fibrillation. Now let's turn to another silent danger. One that doesn't always come with pain, but often with nothing more than a faint flutter in the chest. It's called atrial fibrillation, or AFib. Millions of older adults live with it unknowingly, until the first sign is not a flutter at all, but a stroke. I once met George, a retired mechanic in his early 70s. Strong as an oak, he still changed his own oil and walked his dog every morning. Yet at night, he sometimes felt a strange flutter when he lay down. No pain, just off. His doctor dismissed it. Probably stress. 3 months later, George had a stroke. The clot didn't come from clogged arteries. It came from that quiet flutter. From AFib. Here's the science in plain words. Normally, your heart beats in a smooth, steady rhythm. In AFib, the upper chambers quiver instead of pumping. Imagine shaking a soda can instead of pouring it gently. That shaking makes blood swirl instead of flow. And when blood swirls, it clots. Those clots can travel straight to the brain, blocking an artery in seconds. The chilling truth: 1 in 3 people with untreated AFib will suffer a stroke. And those strokes are often more disabling. So how would you know? Sometimes AFib feels like a skipped beat, a racing heart, or shortness of breath. Other times it feels like nothing at all. That's why it's often missed, until it's too late. But here's the hopeful part. You can catch it. You can feel your own pulse at the wrist or neck. Is it steady or irregular? You can ask your doctor for a simple EKG or a 24-hour monitor. And if you are diagnosed, treatments like blood thinners and rhythm medications dramatically cut risk. Think of it this way. Instead of ignoring a flutter and hoping it passes, you can treat it as the warning it truly is. Instead of waiting for a stroke to change your life, you can act early and keep walking your dog every morning. Coming up next, we'll talk about something sweeter, but just as dangerous: high blood sugar and the silent rise of prediabetes. Now, let's talk about sugar. Not the kind in your coffee, but the kind that builds up quietly in your blood. Diabetes, and even more often, prediabetes, is one of the most underestimated stroke risks. Here's the startling truth. Nearly half of all Americans over 65 already have prediabetes. That means 1 in 2 seniors may be living with elevated blood sugar without knowing it. And research shows that almost 8% of those with prediabetes have already experienced a stroke, more than double the rate in the general population. Let me share Lorraine's story. She was 66, recently retired from bookkeeping, sharp as a tack, always with a planner in her purse. One afternoon while making tea, she dropped the kettle. No pain, no blackout, just sudden weakness that passed in minutes. At the hospital, her blood sugar was nearly 200, and her A1C showed diabetes she never knew she had. That mini-stroke was her wake-up call. What actually happens in the body? High blood sugar inflames and damages the lining of arteries, making them stiff, narrow, and prone to clots. Add in high cholesterol or blood pressure, and you have a perfect storm. And you don't need full-blown diabetes to be at risk. Even prediabetes quietly injures your vessels. Left alone, about 1 in 3 people with prediabetes will develop diabetes within 4 years. But here's the hopeful part. Lifestyle changes can cut that risk almost in half. So what can you do? Start with testing, not just fasting glucose, but an A1C, which shows your 3-month average. Then, make small swaps. Begin your day with protein instead of sweet toast. Choose whole grains over white bread. Take a 10-minute walk after your biggest meal, and you can lower your blood sugar by as much as 30%. Even tiny adjustments matter. Think of it this way. Instead of saying, "It's just a little sugar," you can take control before it becomes diabetes. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you can choose one small step today. And that one step can protect your brain tomorrow. Coming up next, we'll move from sugar to something sticky that hides inside your arteries: cholesterol and plaque. Let's move now to something you cannot see or feel until it is far advanced: cholesterol and the plaque it leaves behind. Many people glance at their cholesterol numbers, see they are a little high, and assume everything is fine. But here's the hidden danger. Even borderline cholesterol can quietly coat the inside of your arteries, especially if you also have high blood pressure or high blood sugar. Over time, this buildup narrows the flow of blood to your brain and sets the stage for a sudden, devastating stroke. Helen's story brings this to life. At 74, she was a retired librarian with a sharp memory and a steady walking routine. She thought she was doing everything right. But one afternoon, watching her favorite quiz show, her arm went numb and her words came out jumbled. A scan revealed severe plaque buildup in her carotid arteries, the main highways carrying blood to the brain. She had never been warned because her cholesterol was not urgent. Yet the plaque told a different story. What's really happening? LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad kind, seeps into artery walls. The immune system tries to patch it, creating inflammation. Layer by layer, plaque forms like rust in an old pipe. One day that plaque may rupture, and a clot will form on top, racing toward the brain. That's when the damage is done. So how do you fight back? First, know your full picture: LDL, HDL, and triglycerides. Second, ask your doctor if you should have a carotid ultrasound, especially if you're over 65. Third, build a cholesterol-clearing plate: oats, beans, fatty fish, nuts, olive oil, and berries. These foods don't just lower cholesterol. They stabilize plaque and protect your arteries. Think about it. Instead of waiting for a clot to surprise you, you can keep those arteries clean and open. Instead of letting borderline numbers lull you into false comfort, you can take action now to protect your brain's lifeline. Up next, we'll look at a risk that surprises many seniors. Something as simple as a vitamin deficiency that can quietly raise stroke risk. Now let's talk about something that often hides in plain sight: vitamin B12 deficiency. Most people think of stroke risk in terms of blood pressure or cholesterol, but a lack of this one vitamin can quietly raise the danger too. How? By allowing a compound called homocysteine to build up in the blood. Elevated homocysteine damages arteries, makes blood more sticky, and increases the chance of clots. And clots, as you now know, can travel straight to the brain. George, a 76-year-old retired postal worker, learned this the hard way. For months he felt tingling in his feet, struggled with fatigue, and brushed it off as just getting older. Then one morning, he couldn't form a sentence. He had a stroke. The scans showed no major blockage, no atrial fibrillation, no diabetes. But his B12 levels were critically low, and his homocysteine nearly double the healthy limit. This isn't rare. In fact, studies show that nearly 1 in 5 adults over 80 has a metabolic B12 deficiency, and more than a third have high homocysteine levels. Why? As we age, our stomach produces less acid, so even if we eat eggs, fish, or dairy, absorption drops. Medications like metformin or antacids make it worse. The symptoms creep in slowly. Numbness, memory slips, mood swings, and we dismiss them. But it isn't age, it's deficiency, and it's reversible. So what can you do? Ask your doctor for a B12 test and, if possible, a homocysteine check too. If levels are low, supplement with methylcobalamin, a form your body absorbs easily. Sublingual drops or lozenges often work better for seniors. Yes, food sources help, but after 60, most of us need more than food alone. Think about it. Instead of blaming age for brain fog or clumsiness, you can identify and treat the real cause. Instead of letting a simple deficiency steal your clarity, you can protect your mind and your independence. Coming up next, we'll move from chemistry to muscle. Because when your legs weaken and you sit too long, blood stops moving. And when blood stops, clots form. Now, let's talk about the legs. You may not think of your calves and thighs as part of stroke prevention, but they play a bigger role than most realize. After 60, muscle loss in the legs accelerates, a condition called sarcopenia. By age 80, nearly half of older adults have significant leg muscle loss. Why does this matter? Because your calves act like a second heart. Every step squeezes the veins and helps push blood back to the chest. When the muscles weaken, or when you sit too long, blood pools in the legs. And where blood sits still, clots form. Lorraine, once a lively 80-year-old florist, learned this after a fall left her afraid to move. "I'll rest more," she told her daughter. Weeks passed, and her strong legs grew thin. One morning, her right leg swelled, warm and red. Hours later, she had a stroke. The clot had started in her calf, traveled upward, and lodged in her brain. This is not uncommon. Studies show that adults over 60 who sit more than 8 hours a day have double the risk of dangerous vein clots. Even sitting more than 4 hours straight without standing significantly raises the risk. And it's not just about walking. Weak muscles mean poor circulation, and poor circulation means higher clot danger. So what can you do? Start with small steps. Stand every 30 minutes, even for a minute or two. Do calf raises while brushing your teeth. Try seated marches while watching TV. Strengthen your legs with resistance bands or light weights. And make sure you're getting enough protein, about 80 to 100 grams daily for a 150-pound senior, to maintain muscle. Think of the difference this way. Instead of letting the chair slowly weaken your circulation, you can let your legs pump life back toward your heart. Instead of waiting for blood to pool and clot, you can keep it moving with every small motion. And next, we'll turn to one of the most overlooked risks of all, the way you sleep, and how it may silently deprive your brain of oxygen night after night. You've heard all your life that sleep is essential, but here's what many people over 60 don't know. The way you sleep can quietly raise your risk of stroke. Not because you stay up late, but because of what happens while you sleep, when your brain may be starved of oxygen without you realizing it. The condition is called sleep apnea, and it is far more common than most imagine. Mr. Benjamin, a 74-year-old retired accountant, discovered this the hard way. His wife noticed loud snoring followed by long silences, then sudden gasps. He brushed it off. Just age, he said. But every morning he woke up tired, sometimes with a headache. Then one morning he didn't wake up on time. She found him confused, his speech garbled. He had suffered a mild stroke. Testing later showed that every night his oxygen was dipping below safe levels for hours at a time. Why is this so dangerous? Each pause in breathing can last 10 to 30 seconds, sometimes hundreds of times a night. Each pause lowers oxygen, forcing your body to release stress hormones that spike blood pressure and damage blood vessels. Over time, this cycle makes clots more likely. Studies show untreated sleep apnea can double or even triple the risk of stroke, even if blood pressure seems controlled. So how do you know if you might have it? Look for signs: loud snoring, waking up gasping, morning headaches, daytime sleepiness, poor memory, mood swings. But here's the hopeful part. You can test and treat it. Medicare covers home sleep studies for most seniors. If diagnosed, using a CPAP machine may feel strange at first, but it can save your brain. Creating a sleep-friendly routine, cool room, no heavy meals or screens before bed, makes a big difference too. Think of it this way. Instead of dismissing poor sleep as part of aging, you can uncover a hidden threat and fix it. Instead of losing oxygen night after night, you can wake rested, protect your heart, and protect your brain. And now, let's bring all 7 silent threats together and see how small steps can add up to the strongest protection. So, here we are. We've walked through 7 silent threats: high blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, prediabetes, cholesterol buildup, vitamin B12 deficiency, muscle loss, and poor sleep. None of them scream for attention, yet all of them quietly raise the risk of stroke. And yet, here's the hope I want you to hold on to. Most strokes are preventable. Think about it. Instead of waiting for a crisis, you can start protecting your brain today. Instead of saying, "I feel fine, so I must be fine," you can know your numbers, move your body, eat with purpose, and rest with oxygen flowing freely. Small steps matter. Each glass of water, each short walk, each healthy swap is a vote for your independence and your future. I've spent 3 decades with older adults, in hospitals, classrooms, and living rooms, and I've seen the difference one decision can make. The strongest people aren't always the youngest or fittest. They're the ones who choose not to ignore the whispers. So here's my invitation. Comment below with the one small change you'll start today. Subscribe so you don't miss next week's video. 7 calf exercises in just 4 minutes to protect your circulation and your brain. And share this video with someone you love, because knowledge like this can change, even save, a life. Stroke may begin in silence, but your response can speak volumes.